Yep.
Am I online?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Call this meeting of the Port Hood River Commission to order. Any modifications from staff?
Yes, we do have 3 changes to the agenda. They're all action items. So item B, the resolution saying the waterfront parking rates, rules, fees, zones and hours. We're going to pull that. We'll still keep the discussion item, however.
Okay.
And then we're going to add, I guess it would be E, would be approved contract for underwater pier repair.
Got it.
And F, which would be approved resolution establishing tolling revenue use policy.
Got it. Anything from commission? Outside that? Okay. Public comment, Joe, number 1.
He is here as a discussion item. I think.
Yeah, he is.
Signed up to speak, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Then we'll just wait until then. Like Sherry, I guess I got just you.
Hi, I'm Sherry Bond. Some of you know me. I have to say, this is really surreal for me to be standing here after sitting for 12 years at that table right there and for 6 in that position right there. And then as I was thinking about this, I think this table was in the expo center. If you ever had a meeting in there, no windows. Right? It's been a long time. But anyway, I'm here tonight because I'm the current president of the Hood River Outrigger Club. And this is your test. In your packet, I know that you have our recap letter. So I always just used to look to see who had it really quick, open up their packets and see who had it in their packets. But I just want to take a couple minutes and just do a recap here. First, I want to say thank you. It's been a really great 9 years. Our club has been around for 9 years and we wouldn't be here without Port. So I want to say thanks for that. That's really great. But I want to take just a couple minutes to go over some of our accomplishments and our goals as you move forward with the bridge replacement and the waterfront development. Again. Right. So over the past 9 years, we've grown. We started with 30 members and 1 vote. And in 2022, we had over 130 members and we now have 6 votes. So that growth has been phenomenal, and we attribute that to the success and the excitement of the actual sport itself, as well as to our community. And statistically, it says it's going to continue. It's just moving from Hawaii across the United States. So this isn't going to go anywhere. Several years ago, we began a very competitive race program. And last year we competed in all the Pacific Northwest races, as well as sent teams to Kona, which is a very prestigious race. And we were lucky, we brought home medals from all over. So we have a very competitive race team. And also, due to the dedication of our club members, we have a ever exploding kids program, for what we call Keikis. Last year we put 150 kids in boats over the summer to have them experience outrigger paddling. And as of today, when I finalize the last one, we're probably going to do about 200 this year, if I can round up the volunteer. So that's really exciting. It's so fun. We work with the middle school, we work with the Hood River Opportunity Academy, and we also work with Fiona. And we're really excited to work with Fiona because we're bringing kids on the water that don't normally get that experience. It's that ESL, as well as we have a Native American camp coming through too. So that's going to be really fun. So they get to spend time with us. We take our 12-man out and do a lot of fun things with them. Just a couple of things. A lot of our members, like I said, we have 130 members. They range from age from 16 to 80 plus. They enjoy just paddling for the sense of camaraderie. But also we have, like I said, we have a phenomenal race team. This morning at 6:30, it was 38 degrees. Water temperature was just a little bit warmer. We had 22 people out getting ready to race on Saturday. That's full neoprene, full PFDs, because it's, you don't have long if you go over in one of those boats. But we have our first race on Saturday. So excited. Last year, on our last day of paddling, I wish I could have had pictures of this because it was phenomenal. We had 48 paddlers and 8 boats out there. And it was really cool because we went under the bridge and we got lots of honks. Lots of honks. We had truck drivers and train drivers honking at us. It was just a sight to be seen. But the main reason why I'm here is as you go through with your bridge replacement, waterfront development, it's really critical that we continue our discussions and our communications so that we can continue the health and success of our club. Right now, we have 3 canoes. There are what they call Malolos. There are traditional canoes. They sit at Broad Beach. And they weigh about 400 pounds apiece. They're 45 feet long. They're really cool. They're really neat. They're really heavy. So the closer we are to the water, the easier it is. It takes a lot of technique and skill and coordination to get those boats in the water. But when they do, they're really neat. We currently have 2 of them lashed together. That's our 12-man. And we call that the party barge, but it's a great place to take people out that don't know how to paddle. It's very safe. Take a lot of our kids out there. And if you've ever seen 12 8th graders trying to paddle together, it doesn't happen very often, but it's fun to try. So that's one thing that we always have to keep in mind. Our current lease, which we are super happy that it got renewed again this year. Our current location in what we call our Holly, which is stands for our clubhouse, is a fenced location that are newer, more expensive boats. These are the fiberglass race boats that are much more expensive. They cost about $25,000 each, and we currently have 6 of them in there. And we have to have them there because of the wind. They're very lightweight. So, but we still have to get them to the water, and that requires, so if you want to see something really interesting in the morning at 6:30 in the morning when it's 38 degrees, those boats rolling into the water and nobody wanting to get in to make sure the nose doesn't do anything for the waters. But the main thing is our Holly acts as our gathering place for our Ohana, which is family. And that's what we really, really are striving to make sure that you guys know that that's what we want to have. We need a permanent location for this group. So as you make your plans and you work through it, we just are asking that you keep us in mind and that you keep us at the table so that we can continue to grow. We have kept our dues reasonable, but we have been planning for the future, and we do have money set aside in order to fulfill this. Not a lot, but we do want to have a permanent location. And so as you continue this development, I just ask that you let us be at the table and keep us in mind. Anyway.
So from the Newbridge point of view, Mike Shannon is a key contact for you. We're negotiating with the treaty tribes of an exclusion zone that'll cover new bridge construction and old bridge destruction. So what we're basically doing is setting an envelope that basically says the envelope starts in about here and it goes out this way. So the new bridge comes in this way. So it's roughly 100 yards downstream from it, and then roughly 100, 200 yards upstream from it. It comes in about where the hotel is, right about here. So what we're doing is we're keeping the treaty tribes out of that area during construction. We want to do the same thing with you folks. And it's a safety issue because we're going to have barges all over the place. We're going to have cranes lifting heavy stuff. We don't want anybody getting hurt. So as long as we can keep you, down or down here, we're fine. But Mike will be a real key resource for you to, as we go forward with construction coordination.
That's awesome. If you know where we are in the basin right now. We access via the basin, which works really great, depending upon what the plans are. Plans do we have for the basin? And always, flow and access would be an issue. I know there's been talk that once the bridge comes in, the marina is gonna get, so we may end up somewhere along in the marina or something like that. We just ask that you keep us in
Yeah,
mind.
that's definitely gonna be a pinch point.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna have to be careful with it.
And the only other last thing I have, unless you have any questions for me, is I'd love to invite any of you out. Love to have you come out and paddle with us. It's a surreal experience. I'm a water person. I've lived here for a long time. I've done a lot of sports. And I've only been paddling for 4 years, and it's just a real different experience to go out there with 5 other people and paddle the river. And the higher the wind, the bigger the waves, the crazier we are. So, and the last thing, if you really want to see the sport in action, the gorge race, which takes place the July the 8th, it's really a phenomenal to see over 100 boats. I think we had 55 boats leave from Stevenson last year, and typically that's it's your mixed crews and your women crews. They go to Drano, and then the guys get in and go from Drano to Pension. So they never let the women go Drano to Pension. Any other questions? No? Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity, and you guys have actually worked.
All right, so these are the modifications. You can approve the consent agenda. If I can have a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second, all in favor? Aye, I as well. Thank you. All right, now we get to hear from Joe. John, do you want to introduce?
Yeah, I'd like to introduce Joe Hamilton from Hamilton Construction. He's here to give us a little update on a little delay we've had in producing the ropes for the wire rope project. So, yeah, please just stand right up there, Joe.
I can talk or I can answer questions if you guys have questions, but so when we first got the contract, I'll call them our partners that are doing the fabrication, kind of put us on alert that there could potentially be some issues with wire rope procurement and socket procurement. I talked to John, kind of gave him a heads up, but then in the subsequent weeks, we were able to have some conversations with them, and they said, hey, we're good, there's no problem. We'll be able to deliver the end of April, if not sooner. And so we kept charging forward. Tried keeping in touch with them, and there's some different levels here, which I'll go in as much detail as you guys want, but the folks that we were in direct communication with never highlighted or alerted us that there had been any production delays in any other components. And here it was about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, it was a Wednesday afternoon, I got an email of all things from our wire rope fabricator, and that they weren't gonna make the timeline. So drove up the next morning to sit down with John and visit a little bit, and then spent the next 3 days trying to talk to anybody in the industry that can try and pull a rabbit out of the hat. Weren't able to make that happen.
So what's the latest with the manufacturer? When do they expect to go into fabrication? How long is it gonna be?
They're currently making the sockets are being made right now. That was kind of the big hang up, was socket casting. So right now, as we sit today, I just got word from them on Monday, I guess yesterday, that they're gonna stretch and test the ropes and make everything the end of June. And then ship.
So when will they actually start fabrication of the rope?
It'll be in June. Actually putting things together.
Well, that's putting it together, but where are they getting, are they going to wrap the rope themselves there?
The rope is being made right now. There's
Okay.
2 different facilities. There's the ropes being made, I think, in Missouri. A wire rope company in Missouri, The sockets are being made, I'd be in line if I told you right now, but they're being made another Midwest place, block filter bridge components. But they're both in that process of the fabrication as we speak.
So they don't put these things together in Vancouver,
No,
so it's done out there.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was, and to speak to that, so. We're working with Weight Specialties, who's, we've worked with them a ton, and they've been a good partner through this. Wood, through it.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'll tell you that.
Maybe like.
That's my brother. It's his special,
They contracted with Woods Logging, who, we use Woods all the time for doing different types of rigging and stuff, and they've always delivered. We thought that Woods was procuring all this stuff to make it in Vancouver, and as it turns out, they're basically acting as a broker, and the big wire rope stuff, although they can build it in Vancouver, they're having it made. They're called Wire Rope Company.
okay, so. Apologize in advance. How do you know they're actually fabricating?
They've given me schedules. I haven't.
Haven't they given you schedules in the past?
No,
Okay, so how do you know they're actually working to the schedule?
I guess I'm taking them at their word that they've given us a schedule and that they're actually. Things are,
But this is the same guys that told you a couple months ago, we're on it, we're on it, we're on it.
Yep.
Oops. So. How can,
I can take a trip out. I'll take a trip out and take pictures if that's what you guys would like.
well, I think
Because that's
you
really-
need to be sure that you've got your material coming. So you may want to think about either doing that, or if you have a local somebody close by that could go in and
I
check.
don't have anybody out that way that I would trust, so I can let John know when I'll go, or myself and somebody else will go, and we'll take a field trip.
Now, something to consider, Kevin. This could be a great learning opportunity, and I know it's an investment of an airplane ticket and maybe an overnight. But you may want to think about sending somebody from the port to tag along to look at this, educationally wise. We're gonna have other contracts. How do you ensure that progress is being made? And in my past life, we've used this approach standard on all large procurements. We would send in supplier quality to make sure that it was actually on schedule, and because when you're talking big projects, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That you're
Well, and
holding up.
this is a big deal too. I mean, I don't want to be standing here any more than you guys want to be listening to me, so. But from the educational point of view, what I have learned is that 1 5/8 rope, not a terribly common size of wire rope in the grand scheme of things, which is why a lot of these components aren't readily available. They're all being made custom, and I thought that process was well and underway, and
It kind of makes sense. This bridge is really old.
Yeah.
And I thought we were gonna have some problems with it. And yeah, we are having problems with it.
Is it a 3-day closure in May?
Or-
4-day closure in May. So the other side of this is. I understand what's going on. I completely agree with what you said. You can convince me to close that bridge for 4 days in May. You're gonna have a harder time convincing me to close it for 4 days in the middle of summer. When all kinds of money is flowing into this community and we have a lot more people and a lot of businesses rely on it. You're not gonna convince me to do it during fruit harvest. So
Yes.
when,
I can speak to that, Ben. We've worked with the contractor and we're tentatively trying to schedule for the last 2 weekends in October.
how's that gonna be for Parkdale and Joe's?
Well, I think
We need to be, that
This
harvest
year-
is 2 weeks late this year. At
this year's
least,
gonna be
yeah.
late.
we gotta be, we need to.
We've always gone standard has always been, the October 15th has been the date we were like, oh, 3 to go.
Right.
I get that's late, but I wasn't aware of that.
I think Parkdale right now is at least 1 week, if not 2 weeks late.
Yeah, we're
because of the
blooming,
weather.
we're blooming 10 days late at least right now, so. Gotta be careful about that this year. It's gonna be, I would say that's gonna be middle of October is gonna be end of October.
Jill, would you be willing to discuss early November?
We're happy to do whatever we need to do.
Okay, then
We're
that's
gonna-
solved. I also wanted to let you know that we're working on a change order with the company that puts some teeth into the end of this. That instead of just having liquidated damages against the actual weekend closure, now there will be a change order written that you're 10,000 a day if you don't make the next date we set up to install this. So we're working to make sure that we don't have any, once we schedule this again, we won't have this happen again. There's some teeth in the contract that helps in that regard.
So the other thing in that regard, have you done some kind of a risk analysis of the lift and what you're gonna have to do and what's gonna break that we don't think is gonna break?
They actually have been on top
Yeah, we've
multiple
been up,
times.
I don't want this. Being that we're just replacing the cables, I think it's a lot more straightforward. We're not pulling the trunnions down. The jacking system is there. That part of it, aside from a catastrophic failure, should be pretty solid engineered out. So then it's just a matter of pulling the ropes down and putting the new ones up, and we've got a good plan in place for that, so. Things happen, I don't foresee anything major like that, and. Certainly don't want to commit to anything, but I mean, we're not planning on having this thing closed for 4 days, it should go pretty quick.
And the other thing, when you're pushing that late in the year, we could very easily see an early frost too. You know,
Not weather
we
dependent.
had snow and Thanksgiving here last year.
Okay.
Uncomfortable, but not,
Yeah.
not undoable.
But anyway, I would think, consider it. It may be a worthwhile educational process to send somebody with you when you go down. And I would encourage you next week to make sure they're actually
Yeah,
following it. Trust but verify.
Find out, follow up with us, and you know, that it's manufactured and you have a better idea on date.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think we can just, at this point, we'll just point towards early November.
I think you're
And-
safe, yeah.
And if that's okay, and that'll meet the fruit harvest, I don't see any problem with making that change.
And once that rope is secured and we know that for sure, let's make sure we communicate that across the river. That
Absolutely.
way they can inform everyone, so you don't have to.
So would you take possession of the cable and store it locally, or what would you do?
we're
with it?
planning to store it here as long as they're through, and we gotta work out those details of the drawing. But that would be our plan, it's gonna have it line here, so it's,
Thank you.
no other.
Great.
Alright. Appreciate you coming.
Well, sorry, I had to.
Joe, thank you very much.
Yeah, would you like me to stay?
No, there's no need. You're free to go. Thank you, Joe.
Item B.
All right, this is a discussion to discuss the commencing of the public process for funding the replacement bridge. As you know, the Washington State Transportation Commission has been conducting an independent traffic and revenue study. In fact, I believe this evening they approved the 2 scenarios that are in the staff report. Mike Shannon, who's online, just texted me that the 2 scenarios that they had been studying were approved by their board. And so there has been a recommendation from the bi-state working group to begin the process of implementing a new toll increase. And so it's really important that that this is something that can't happen overnight. It took over 6 months to do this process back in 2017, 2018, when the toll increase was implemented in February of 2018. And so it's really going to take a pretty robust communications effort, not just about the toll increase, but about the new bridge authority, about the federal TIFIA loan. I mean, people don't know what the TIFIA loan is, but really what we're looking at doing with this toll increase would be to be building up the reserves necessary to go out and get that TIFIA loan, which is the last piece of the funding for the bridge replacement effort. So that's the main reason for this toll increase. And but that's really the communications and PR is an important part, but there's also the technical implementation of this process. There's training that needs to occur with staff, there's signage, there's getting our software in the back of the house all programmed and making sure that it's been tested to make sure that we don't have any problems on the day of the flip switching. So it's really going to be about a 6-month process that needs to start pretty quick if we're going to hit September 1, which I think is the mutually agreed to date for that toll to be implemented. So kind of working back from there, assuming that the public relations campaign and the communications taking place, you would have a toll implementing resolution in front of you in July, give or take, sometime in July. And that's about 30 to 45 days in advance of the switch. So, there's really, we put in there a pretty nice schedule that Genevieve pulled from the February 2018 increase. You'll notice that the budget committee has a couple of responsibilities in this. Obviously, the amount of revenue that's going to be generated from the new toll increase is going to be placed into a separate new bi-state reserve fund. And so that needs to be incorporated into the budget process. That also includes the creation of that new reserve fund. And we've got we're going to have 2 new commissioners that are coming, or actually one new commissioner coming on board.
There could be a write-in campaign.
Yes, sorry. There's 2 open positions, but only 1 is contested, Christine. So we're obviously going to want to train and get that new commissioner completely up to speed on what's transpired, and there's a lot to absorb. And so, I really think that this is an item that the commission should discuss. We are going to be having, JLA is going to be leading a communications workshop, I believe this week is the first tomorrow.
And 1 o'clock, right?
Yeah, we have a conflict though. We have an all toll collectors meeting that starts at 2.
Okay.
And so,
Well, we'll figure it
yeah,
out, but
I mean, I'm open at 9 AM, but I don't know if anybody else is.
yeah, so the intent is
Soon.
JLA, HNBV, Jennifer, the port, and so on will work together to fine tune the plan, get the public involvement into it, but still meet the budget date of the June timeframe. We're going to try and meet that.
Right. Right. And I think that's
The importance of this is that this whole resolution that we're going to talk about later on with this really helps position the port with the 2 states and the federal grants. This is kind of a logical piece that we're trying to plug. And so tonight's a big night for us for the new bridge. We're proposing 2 things that get resolved, and that goes a long ways. There's some really good news about to happen, but we need these couple of pieces in there.
so. We're looking at things like, are we going to do an open house on the Washington side, open house over here? I mean, all of that's going to be developed here, frankly, in probably the next few weeks.
You're just asking for authorization to start the process tonight.
That's correct.
We have an action item on that. That's action item T-ish.
Okay.
Something like that.
That's it. huh?
Okay.
Okay. That's the discussion item. And then the next one is the waterfront parking system discussion.
Hmm.
So we looked at, I remember having this discussion during
Spring planning.
a little bit, and there's a pretty solid consensus here
Yeah,
on this commission. So
yep.
what'd you come up with?
Yeah, so what we've come up with is all detailed in your memo. And we feel like we're, 95% of the way there to surety. But we do want to make sure that there's clear consensus from the commission on 4 remaining questions that are controversial enough. We want to make sure we're proceeding as you'd like us to proceed. So I'll skip to the end, if you don't have any questions on the parking plan that we laid out. And then also, an item, we're going to be doing the first reading of ordinance 27, which would repeal and replace ordinance 24. That ordinance works, it houses the parking plan within it. So we want to have a little bit more time to do legal review to make sure things match up correctly for the resolution adopting this parking plan. So we're hoping to do that during the May 2nd meeting, during the regular business meeting. So,
Everybody's clear on what resolution 27 is.
yeah.
And stuff like that, okay.
so the 4 more controversial issues, staff is recommending that we close the event site parking booth. And not man it. This would be the payment for parking in the event site would be managed by the text to pay system or the mobile app system, but it would not be, there wouldn't be teenagers in a booth to help you with your day pass. So we want to make sure that you want to move forward that way. It's a pretty big change. The other big change that's important to make sure we have clear direction from you on is ending the trucking company agreements on the westernmost block of Portway Avenue. It does provide a service to our industrial freight partners, and we want to make sure that you are okay with us canceling those agreements so that we can have we can respond to the increased demand on that westernmost end of Portway. By allowing passenger vehicles all days. The demand conflict between the passenger vehicles and the trucking uses are not such an issue in the winter, but starting, mid-April to mid-October, there's real conflict there. We also want to make sure that you are in favor of implementing paid parking for the Hook. This is a big change. And it's in response to really a very rapid explosion of use at the Hook that corresponds with foiling. It's a perfect launch spot for foiling, and we had a lot of problems resulting from, what do you think, 3,000% increase of use on that area. So we just want to make sure you're okay with us implementing that, and also implementing paid parking at the Marina parking lot here behind us. There's 66 spots in the Marina parking lot. There's about 44 designated parking spots right now at the Hook, and Portway would add another 40 or 50 spots of regular size spots. So
Those be on the same parking app that you're recommending.
yes,
It'll all be the same.
yeah,
Okay.
which is a simplified schedule that's more aligned with the city's hours. We would change our hours to align with the city's hours, and we would have one uniform rate if you so choose of $2.50 per hour up to $15 for the day. One of the big changes that we want to remove, because we've never actually enforced it, is a maximum 3-hour or 4-hour stay in particular zones. When we first implemented the parking plan in June of 2018, we got really in the weeds for every little lot, and we had different rules for those few spaces down in Nichols Basin than we had at this block or that block, and we really want to make it so everybody understands the system is pretty much uniform throughout the waterfront. What we're recommending here does preserve free parking at the Spit and the Marina Swim Beach and the Marina Morridge parking lot. So there are still some free options on the waterfront, but this would greatly expand the areas that you need to pay. So we want to make sure you feel good about all of those changes.
I have a couple of questions. One, did you do any kind of a study? What revenue would this increase result in? Even
No,
if it's an.
No, it's been sort of back of the napkin math, to be honest with you, and counting the spots, and I don't have a good number to rely on because I don't understand enough the especially for the Marina parking lot, what percentage occupancy we have there. We've never really tracked it. When the fish are running, we're full up, and it's back of the napkin math at this point. So I don't have good data for you on what we can expect, but other than
Okay, How
growth.
about the truckers? Have we had any discussion with that outfit? As far as impacts if we shut them down for using the street for parking?
Those discussions happened when we first implemented the plan. To allow for the truckers during weekdays. I mean, it's an important stop for them. It would impact them negatively. To remove that option for them.
But
We did have a study, I think, in 2018 that kind of led to the decision to reserve that space for them. It would be a hardship.
There is a free parking just around the corner though on 8th Street.
Yes, on 8th Street, yeah. It fills up a lot, you know, I mean, they would need to find an alternate location. It does provide a very nice service to them, especially to drop a trailer. For a different, you know, the last mile driver to pick up, the long haul driver drops it, the last mile driver picks it up. That it's an important spot for them, so, you know.
But it doesn't impact our local port businesses per se, it's these aren't servicing.
To talk about that a little
Well, the accessibility of logistics and getting goods to market, it could have a detrimental effect, but I just wanted to add, we're vetting the use of the east portion of the maritime lot
Okay,
as far as in summer usage, and so it would be difficult to get in there and plow and make it accessible, but I've been in conversations with truck drivers about would it be viable for them to pull through the lot and use it as a carryover spot or a transfer location. So we're still trying to find opportunities. Yeah, as far as a seasonal use.
I personally would like to stay in. Off the street, it's kind of an eyesore. But
Well,
also I understand they need it. But we can find an alternate mode for them for the summer season. Let them park on the winter season, which nobody's down there anyway.
well, the other thing is that if I read the packet correctly, the other suggestion on the hook is going to be limiting extended length vehicles,
Right, right.
and so
Which is
that's
more of a safety thing than
right, it's
a
a
revenue thing.
right, it's a hazard, and I understand that, and those vehicles are gonna look to those trucking spots to park as the closest option.
The
So-
suggestion has come up that during the summer, we let them use lot 1. The immediate response was the eyesore worry. You know, and they're kind of on Port Way behind the sewer treatment plant. They're sort of tucked away and, you know, in this industrial zone where they belong. So it's really sort of industrial versus recreational,
Mhm.
you know, demand conflict.
Well, that area down there is becoming very quickly recreational, not
Absolutely.
industrial. Sorry, it is. And we have had some safety issues down there and some dangerous parking situations, and I need to be supplying whatever parking we can in that area. And if we can put an extra X number of cars angled parking right through there, at maybe it is 3 hours at a time to encourage turnover, but the trucks can go somewhere else. And if we can provide it, great.
Mhm.
But we need to think about what's actually going on right there now. And maybe it was perfect 10 years ago, but it's not perfect right now.
And I should note that none of the agreements, the agreements it termed out in 2020.
Okay.
So it's just been month to month anyway, so, and billing them, so there's no signed agreement that would have to be, you know, terminated legally, it's just, you know, we have to say you guys can't park there anymore.
And my only last comment is down here on the boat ramp, trying to put like a 2-hour limit on them. I would
Oh.
encourage you not to be.
Yeah, we're recommending we take away the time limits on the entire waterfront front.
Yeah.
And most of that has to do with, you know, we don't have the enforcement staff to go mark the tires, chalk a tire to make sure somebody, you know, if you paid for your parking, especially if you paid for $15, you're good for the day.
There's still no overnights, correct?
No overnights, no parking between 11 and 6 AM.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right.
Is there any way to have an option if somebody can't pay by text and come to the office to pay for? a
During
day?
regular hours, sure. And part of this change that we talked about in spring planning is if somebody gets a ticket, they would not have to deal with people in Wisconsin to pay their ticket. That agreement would end and we would receive payments, disputes, you know, requests for a waiver here at the office during business hours. A lot of that just happens over the phone or email the next Monday.
Okay.
And we've already kind of set up to be that self-sufficient. I did check with the Port of Cascade Locks. like us, they don't charge to use their guest boat launch, but they do charge for parking, and it's $10 a day at their marina.
They may be changing that in the future with having to come off the tolls themselves. So
Absolutely.
I personally like your list. I don't have a problem.
One thing just to note that with the paid parking at the Hook, our plan is to not have the passes valid there and that it's only paid parking. Aware of that?
It seems to be naturally separating the user groups. Keeping the kites at the event site and the wingers at the Hook, so it might naturally be a good thing.
Any more questions?
And you guys are okay with closing the event site booth, having it unmanned?
That's your recommendation, yeah?
Okay, thank
I
you
know
very
how
much.
hard staffing is, so.
Right. Well, we've had other jobs for those kids.
Yes.
So we'll have the resolution through legal review and making sure that it fits in perfectly with ordinance 27. And we'll have that for you on May 2nd.
Thank
Okay. Thank you.
ED report.
I have nothing to add aside from what's in the packet.
Any questions for Kevin on that report? A couple of action items, B's gone, action item A, Daryl, ordinance
Right.
27.
Hello, commissioners. We have our long-awaited update to ordinance 24. We're jumping right up to 27. And so we've been working with legal team and John and Genevieve and Kevin and myself, and we've addressed the 4 issues that are on here, and we've been working on this for several years. So we feel like our legal team has really nailed it down and addressed the issues that we have in a way that will allow us to be able to enforce. So I'm going to turn this over to Joanna because she's done the lion's share of the work on this to kind of give you an idea of the direction that we're going.
Well, thank you so much. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Joanna Lyons-Antley, and I'm working with Kristen Campbell with Campbell Phillips. And thank you to staff who've been wonderful in helping go through this process. So I want to say a couple months ago, we were asked to revise Ordinance 24, and we talked about what the goals of Ordinance 24 really were meant to accomplish. And after listening to some of the safety issues that are occurring on port properties and some of the parking issues, Kristen and I made the recommendation that we amend Ordinance 24 to essentially create a process where the port can exclude folks that violate the port's standard of conduct behavior. And what that exclusion would look like is someone who has a reported behavioral incident, whether it be having a dog off leash or perhaps something more serious, which would be a safety violation, would then be informed and told that their behavior does not meet the port standards. And then given an opportunity to either correct it or not. I mean, it all depends on who, I guess, is enforcing it. But generally, what we like to see is compliance, right? Code enforcement or behavior enforcement is hopefully mostly education and obtaining compliance. If the person refuses to comply, or it's deemed to be a pretty unsafe situation, that person will be asked to leave. And so at your next board meeting for the second reading, you'll be then considering adoption of an exclusion policy. And so Kristen and I reviewed state law. We wanted to make sure that the process would be enforceable. And so I've included in your packet a memo about 2 of the cases that do allow port staff to exclude people from port property, as long as that policy ensures due process, which is notice and a hearing. And so the proposed procedure that you'll be considering at your next board meeting would include those elements. So what if somebody's excluded, told to leave, or not to come back for a certain period of time? What happens then if they refuse to leave, or they come back? Well, then the city of Hood River has agreed to prosecute, to cite those folks with trespass. And that's under a state statute, and I don't have it in front of me, but I know it's in chapter 164. And they've agreed to do that. We've actually, in fact, spoken to the Hood River City Attorney, Dan Kearns, and the Hood River Police Chief Holste. Both were very supportive and positive about this new procedure. And so hopefully that will accomplish what the port is asking of the public when they come to port properties to enjoy and recreate and park. And for these reasons, it is requested that the board move to conduct a first reading of ordinance number 27 regulating conduct on port property. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I've got a couple for you. First off, I think this is great that we've finally gotten to this position. And I know it's been a sore point for you, Daryl, for a while. So I compliment the team and getting where we are today. I read through the ordinance, and personally, I don't have a problem with it. But a couple of questions for you. Do we know, are we somewhat similar to what is going on down at Cascade Locks or up at the Dowels in this regard, or are we somewhat consistent?
I can speak to the Dalles loosely, that we're probably not, just because of their lack of recreation space, that I would be surprised if they've implemented a policy such as this. Cascade Locks, I'm not sure.
I don't think either area has the
We're pretty unique, and that's where we picked
level
up,
of
and
recreation.
yeah, and really had to really think outside of the box, because we are pretty unique in the volume of the recreational parcels, recreational areas and uses.
So are we fairly consistent with Hood River County, where it applies? Are we doing something vastly different?
The whole goal was to tie us closer to the county and the city
Okay,
for enforcement. That's where we had some hiccups before as far as the animal control goes.
And that really
the
was one of
ticketing
our,
and towing.
yeah, first
So
steps.
the whole move was to really try to get everything in line with the city and county as well.
I would also just add that the Newport used this type of an ordinance, the exclusion policy, and it came in handy more frequently than we would have preferred.
good job.
Then, if there are no more questions, anyone would like to make a motion? There's no page numbers this week, so.
My apologies, that was my omission.
It was very
Like
late.
searching
It's
for
on
stuff.
page 3 hash marks.
That was my.
I guess I move that we adopt ordinance number 29 as written on the action item A of the agenda.
27, and it's the conduct the first reading, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we need to read that motion.
I'll second that corrected piece.
Can I just restate that? Because
Yeah, well, read the.
I restate,
motion.
so
And then-
I'll get to that next. We have to approve it first.
Go ahead.
just to restate Commissioner Fox's motion to conduct the first reading and to read ordinance 27 regulating conduct on port property by title only.
I'll
that-
second.
Is that right, Joanna? Okay,
Say so moved. Yep. Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
I as well, so the motion will pass. Daryl, would you please read, conduct the first reading of the ordinance,
Just the title.
the title?
All right, ordinance number 27, an ordinance regulating conduct on port property.
Thank you.
This will be back to you next month.
Okay.
Sounds good. Action item C now, John.
This is the bid solicitation for the miscellaneous steel repairs that come from our fracture critical inspections each year. I had come to the board prior and just got approval to go out to ad for this. And we are, I'm sorry, we've talked about the fact that we have all these repairs each year. This is pretty much a contract that we do each year based on the fracture critical. We are still in the process of catching up some of them that have been hanging there for a bunch of years. So it's a pretty expensive contract this year for this particular work, and most of it is underneath the bridge deck, which, and you know, you have to have a platform down there to work, which means barges and everything to set them up. The containment for the painting that will take place in this as well is it's just a very expensive process to go through. Painting your bridge or doing any work underneath it is some of the most expensive work you can do.
And the real issue here too is that we've got leaded paint on the bridge, so when you have to scrape it. To be able to either re-weld or re-drill, you have to collect all of that. It cannot go in.
That's exactly correct.
Or we get some hefty fines.
Yeah, each location is isolated with a bubble and a vacuum that pulls everything out of it. And it's all written by ODOT standards for any work they do on their bridges.
And this is a critical repair, not an
Yeah,
optional repair. I think we should
These
be,
are not
I think we should be
optional.
making that really clear when we're spending this kind of money and talking about
absolutely.
everything.
These are fracture critical repairs, highest recommended repairs on our bridge at this.
We don't really have much of those.
Yeah. But I just want to make sure we always make that real clear. Okay. Any other questions? If anyone would like to make a motion?
I move that we authorize issuance of it's not really not a bid solicitation. Yeah, bid solicitation
Yeah.
for miscellaneous press repairs. As stated in the agenda here, action item.
I'll
Second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I as well. Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
D, Kevin.
Yep, so this is the resolution commencing the public process for bridge replacement activities. This ties in with the discussion earlier this evening. So staff is recommending that the commission or that a motion be made to approve resolution number 2022-2313 commencing public process for funding the Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority activities. Oh, there it is.
I think there's an error in here. The document itself is resolution number 2023-24-13. And the other document says 2022-2023-13.
I see what you're saying, yes.
It
So
should
that
be 2022-23.
Which one is correct?
13.
we're in,
The memo is correct.
23.
it's the fiscal year.
Yeah, so it should be 22-23.
Right.
Yes,
Good catch.
thank you.
There's no more questions on that. This will start that process. If anyone would like to make a motion, they can.
I'll make it. I move that we adopt resolution number corrected 2022-23-13. Resolution commencing public process for funding Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority activities.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
As well. Thank you.
This is-
Underwater pier repair, your additional.
I'll take that. That's, we went out to add for the underwater, pier repairs. Those are underwater concrete repairs. I'll come right out and say that it looks like our engineers didn't hit that estimate very well. We are, however, doing pretty well compared to the other bids. We received 4 bids. 3 of the bids were $150,000 or so more than the bid we got. And the bid we got was from Advanced American, who we have a great working relationship with. We've done a lot of work on the bridge with them in the past. And I think it just out of pure good trust in the port and how we handle our projects, we received a good price on that. I think we're just in those bidding days. I think when I came to you, about a year ago or a year and a half ago and said, I'd love to be able to be really accurate with estimates right now, but it's just not an environment that you can be anymore. We're gonna get some of these, and I brought that to everybody's attention. This is one of them. This is actually the first one that hit us pretty hard. But this work is viewed by the engineers as absolutely a must-do repair. To be honest, they're only like 3 or 4 spots about so big that need to be repaired. But that's got to be done with a dive team, a barge that can, be anchored down right there for the dive team's safety while they do it. It just is way more expensive than we were anticipating.
So a comment, and it's not a criticism, it's just based on some experience to watch out for, and I know you and I have talked about this. Is that when you have 5 bidders and 4 of them are grouped way up here and you have a low bidder that's way down here, that tends to raise my red flag that this person down here knows something different than these people up here. Generally, that kind of leads you to believe that they bid it low because they found something in the contract that they're going to hit you with extras. Okay, now talking to John, he does not believe that that's going to happen on this one, and because you've worked with these guys, I believe you. But I think for a learning process, what we would do with something like this, I'd take an independent team, one person, and have you look at that document from a completely different point of view and see if you can find the areas where these guys think they're going to get you into a claims position. And then if you write those down, and as you're administrating the contract, you're looking for those scenarios that evolve that we may put on the contract without even them, without us understanding that. But that just gave them the opportunity to open up and go for a claim. So the lessons learned here could be to develop staff like Ryan yourself. Look at the contract, try and identify those 3 or 4 or 5 areas that if we let that environment change, they could open up to a claim. And then as you follow the contract, be looking for those opportunities and try and stop them. So I talked to John and Kevin about that. That may be something that this is great news. We want to try and protect it and not let it move back up. So that's what I would offer up to you. Think about that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for John? If anyone would like to make a motion.
Make a motion to authorize award of contract to Advanced American for the underwater pier repairs project in amount not to exceed $465,000. And authorize the executive director to sign the contract at the conclusion of the protest period, barring no protests.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. And lastly.
All right, does everybody have a copy of this one-page resolution, this was, let's make sure that the number's right, 2022-23-14. This is a modified version of the resolution that the commission adopted last month. I did receive a phone call this morning from Senator Curtis King, who represents Clickitat County. He is the ranking minority member on the Senate Transportation Committee. And he brought to my attention that Representative Phi, who is the chair of the House Transportation Committee, has had some real concerns about the port's use of tolls for non-bridge related activities. And so we talked about the 2028 resolution that had been passed last month, and he had just, I asked him right out, I just said, is this going to jeopardize the tens of millions of dollars that are currently working their way through the legislative process? And his concern wasn't really. And so this resolution modifies that date from June of 2028 to June of 2026. It repeals the older resolution and attempts to kind of explain the reason for that. This is new information that the commission has in front of it that it didn't have last month. And so staff talked about this this morning. And so I am recommending that this be adopted. And I think between this and the earlier resolution, I think that the port can be in a pretty solid spot to say that we've done everything we can to move this project forward.
I agree with that totally. And I think the board's done a wonderful job positioning the community for the bridge. We adopt this. We can stand up to anybody. We did the right thing. I applaud the team for reconsidering, thinking about it. I think it's the right choice.
This is gonna be incredibly difficult for staff. I mean, we talked about this, we talked it through. I understand what they're saying. I understand the reasons behind it and the need. It's gonna be pretty tough. Are you sure?
We're working on it.
I know you can do anything we say, but
We're working on it. You know, there's a lot of things that are brewing. I mean, we've got opportunities that are in front of the port. We're going to be taking advantage of those. I just got the list of all the vendors. It's going to be a process of looking to figure out ways to contract some of our operations.
and expand some. I mean, this is
And
gonna
expand.
accelerate a timeline that we already stipulated, which is like, let's start talking about leases. Let's start talking about development. I mean, this is gonna accelerate that.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna need, if we do this, we need to know, okay, what then do you also need to make that happen? Greg, Kevin, what do you need? Can we afford it? We're gonna have to be talking about that quicker than we thought.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
5 years going to 3, that's a lot. So I just wanna make sure that staff is ready for that, because we're gonna have to.
And Debbie and I've talked quite a bit about, you know, the strategy for working through this process. And I think that we feel comfortable that we can do this. And so, I mean, staff's committed to the bridge replacement project. And that's the way that we're viewing this. We don't want to be the barrier to this project moving forward, if that's the perception. And so the conversation with Senator King was very enlightening. And it wasn't just a local thing. It was something that was coming from another legislator that lives in Puget Sound. So that transcended this from being a local issue to being a statewide issue. And so that's really the driving force. And it's new information from when you adopted the prior resolution.
I firmly believe that this is kind of a domino effect. This is going to start something that's really going to be good, not only for Washington State funding being released to us, but I think the ripple effect on this will be Oregon coming forward this year with funding as well. And it makes a trip back to DC for the grants. It's going to make a really nice visit. Because there's so many of the things that people were looking to try and hang things up on. They're all removed. Okay. Now it's their turn to come forward. I can't. I think this is great.
Well, I'll move to adopt resolution establishing a tolling revenue use policy resolution number 2022-23-14.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. I as well. Thank you, staff. Commissioner Fox.
Just that, the last couple of weeks, we've been spending time with Warm Springs and Umatilla. On negotiating with the tribes on access rights, fishing rights. We had our first meeting with Warm Springs last week. And the very next day, actually Kevin went down for the council meeting, which we didn't even know we were going to be invited to. And both meetings went very well. We don't have a deal, but we're making progress. So I think in the last 3 months associated with the tribes, we've made more progress than we have in 4 years. So it's looking positive. And great job with Kevin, on the second day. That's all I got.
Commissioner Gearing? Commissioner Chapman?
Nothing.
On that last item, I know it's been hard work this week. Thank you all for that and let us know what we can do to support.
Mhm.
Guys. Okay. Do we have any directives this evening? That I forgot about already?
Budget time, budget.
Oh, yeah. Then. With that, we can recess regular session. And read a story and enter into executive session. Under ORS 1926602A, employment of public officers, employees and agents. ORS 1926602B, discipline of public officers and employees. ORS 1926602D, labor negotiator consultations. ORS 1926602E, real property transactions. ORS 1926602F, to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. ORS 1926602G, trade negotiations. ORS 1926602H, conferring with legal counsel regarding litigation. ORS 1926602I, performance evaluations of public officers and employees. ORS 1926602J, public investments. ORS 1926602N, security programs. And finally, ORS 1926602N, labor